They look terrible anyway. Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you for waiting. Welcome to everybody. We'll start our meeting then for Monday, June 23rd. And are we ready with all of our technicals? We are? Good. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Welcome to our City Council meeting for June 23rd, and that's to everyone here in the council chambers and then anyone who's also watching the recording or a live video feed. The first thing we'll do is have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Deneen. Here. Councilmember James. Here. Councilmember Biskins.
Here.
Mayor Marquez Simula.
Here. Thank you. I will read our mission statement. Columbia Heights is a vibrant, healthy, and connected city. We are here to actively support the community, deliver equitable services, build and strengthen connections, improve upon our past, and uphold our successes. We strive to be better and ensure Columbia Heights is a great place for everyone today and in the future. And now, if you're able to, please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. And next we have our approval of the agenda. I do have one change. The Meditation Center proclamation will be switched to our next meeting. Other than that, are there any other questions or changes the council would like? All right, then I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember James and a second by Councilmember Deneen to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes. Next, we have our proclamations. And this evening, our proclamation is for Somali American Day. And we have an audience member here to receive it, and I will read our proclamation. The Independence Day of Somalia is a national holiday observed annually in Somalia and the diaspora worldwide in the 1st of July. Many Somali refugees and their families immigrated to the United States, and today Somali Americans are one of the fastest growing immigrant groups in Columbia Heights. Like many immigrant groups before them, Somali Americans sought shelter to the United States to escape war and persecution, to find opportunities, and to better their lives and the lives of their children. Somali Americans play an integral role in building a vibrant and diverse Columbia Heights, contributing socially, culturally, politically, and economically to our city. Now, therefore, I, Amada Marcus Simila, Mayor of Columbia Heights, do hereby proclaim July 1st, 2025 as Somali American Day in the city of Columbia Heights, County of Anoka, State of Minnesota, USA. In making this proclamation, the history, culture, and contributions of Somali Americans in Columbia Heights are being recognized and celebrated. Thank you, and we'll have Gaid come up. We'll actually do a group photo first.
Come on, you guys come. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, let me see if I have a note here. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Mayor Amara, for this opportunity, City Council, and all members of the community. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure. And I'll say I'm truly honored and grateful to receive this recognition on behalf of our Somali community here in the city of Columbia Heights. So a lot of things has been already said about this day. I'm not gonna go and take along, but I have been in the city since 2010, and I say that there's a lot of Somalis who have moved since then. We were just like a few families when we first came, but now I see that there's a lot. I'm also a member of the community here in the city. I coach soccer, and we started from 2, now we have got over 100 in the community, and we are also expanding to serve more in the community. So again, thank you very much for this opportunity and recognition for our community in the city. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaid. We're so happy to have you be a partner here with the students and in the parks playing soccer, and there's co-ed soccer. I mean, like you said, more than 100 kids every 2 or 3 times a week. So thank you so much. And you've always been so inviting to us to come out and hang out with families and see the games. So we're glad that you're here.
I'm glad to be part of the city.
Thank you. As we said earlier, we will not have the Meditation Center proclamation today, and we will be moving that to our next meeting. And so now we'll go to our community forum. This part of the meeting, we'll go into the business of hearing from the community, and if anyone would like to leave from the proclamations, they're welcome to, or you're welcome to stay. So anytime you feel you want to leave, there's no problems. You don't have to worry about it. I mostly say that because of the children. I don't want people to think, we can't leave, we'll disturb things. We are very open here. Now we're at our community forum. This is an opportunity to address the City Council about items not scheduled for a public hearing. All speakers must provide their name and connection to Columbia Heights. In-person speakers should complete a form for the city clerk, who's sitting at the end of the desk there, and introduce themselves at the podium. Virtual speakers should send their information to the moderator via chat and turn on their cameras when called. Comments are limited to 5 minutes. Disrespectful language is not allowed, and the council may ask questions or refer items for follow-up, but typically does not take action during the forum. And do we have anyone attending virtually?
There is no one attending virtually, just
All
here in
right.
council chambers.
Thank you.
Teresa Carson would like to address the council.
All right. Welcome, Teresa. And then if you could bend the microphone down. And I'll just mention that if you don't speak into the microphone, it won't get picked up on the recording. So we might hear you in the room, but in the recording we won't hear it. So that's why we're particular about the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Teresa Carson. I live at Parkside Village Townhome Association, which is right next door to Sullivan Lake Park. And I have a couple of items. The redesign of the park, the master plan, when exactly did that come into being? And, you know, we were never notified that the park was going to be totally redesigned. Was there a public forum? Was there any input coming from the neighbors? That's our first question, because we've been talking and nobody seems to know where this all originated and why we weren't invited to have input. So that's my first item. And the second item is on the apartments that are going in, the 850 project. Those are 6 floors. And my question is, why are they 6 floors? All the other ones around, wherever you look, they're 4 stories. The one on 37th and University is 4 stories. When you go into Fridley, when you go Spring Lake Park, you know, any of our neighboring communities, all the new structures appear to be 4 stories, except for this one is 6. So that is also a question, is how did that come to be? That's just general information, because it's a lot of people, and it's a lot of people affecting a small park. You know, if you take the lake out of Sullivan Lake Park, the actual part of the park that's left is not very big. And now all of a sudden it's got all these new structures and a lot of people potentially coming into it. So that's my question, is this whole master plan, when did that come about? Has there ever been a public forum? And when are we going to be invited to have input? So thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. And I'll just ask too, Kevin Hansen is here, our Public Works Director, and he's going to take notes for the questions, right?
Madam
So-
Mayor, yeah, I think we would go through the full community forum, and then some of the questions that are easier to answer tonight, we can address those, and then there might be some that we would save for a later response.
All right, that's what I thought. So I just want to let you all know that even though generally we don't always respond at the community forum, we don't always have the right staff at every single meeting to answer every question, but tonight we do have our Public Works Director here. So Kevin does a great job of taking notes for your questions, and then we'll, like Aaron said, we'll answer them at the end, and if there's anything that we need to look into more, we can answer it at a later time. Who's the next speaker?
Walter Harishna would like to address the council.
Hello, I'm Walter Harishnik. I live at 5055 Madison Street. I've been a 42-year resident of Columbia Heights. We've kind of came here 42 years ago because it was a nice, pleasant place to live, and because of the park and because of the neighbors. And so we'd like to keep it that way. Over those 40-some years, a lot more residents have come into the city, and that's not an issue. But what is an issue is the connection between the city council and the current residents that live here. it seems like when a developer comes in and wants to build something, the council is more accommodating to outside forces, and there are other agendas that seem to be more important than the current residents that have been living here for so long. And the current residents would like to kind of maintain the quality of life that made them want to come here and stay in the first place. So that's a real question, how the city responds to the citizens as opposed to new developers that have other agendas, and usually those agendas are financial. So I would kind of like to kind of get the people more involved than outside forces. And along with the Sullivan Park issue that has been talked about a lot, I'm hearing about this pickleball court. And I'm not a big pickleball person, and I'm not aware of the physical disturbance that pickleball courts seem to generate around the metro area. And upon reviewing some of those issues, those pickleball courts, has the city council reviewed adverse reactions to pickleball courts? I mean, have there been issues that, because evidently some other communities have banned them because of noise issues and other issues around town. So if there's issues that are addressed by other communities, I think the city of Columbia Heights should be aware of those issues and be concurrent with them, as opposed to going in, just saying, yeah, we're going to have a pickleball court, because there are repercussions of that. And along with that same type of issue, I'm hearing about some fitness court that's going to invade the grounds of the park, with a pretty good footprint of concrete. And to me, a large footprint of concrete does not work well with a natural habitat. So I would like to see repercussions of a large footprint of concrete, what that does to water tables and runoff and everything that comes with additional things that go along with concrete things. And I've heard that it's a great design, but I have not seen or heard about similar type of things happening in other cities. And besides, I'm not hearing, I guess somebody else is paying for it, but who is really going to use it? What kind of, case study has there been about, the actual usage of a fitness court? Because a fitness court to me would be overhead bars and some rings and maybe some, things, some weights, but not a massive amount of concrete. And I'm hearing about, that the city council granted some astronomical amount of money for the concrete work that goes into this. And the project itself, along with the apartments, I agree completely with 6 stories. Seems like way too tall of a structure. That's a city, that's a building the size of the one that we're in right now, in kind of a semi-industrial area that is over concerned about the size of signage on the roads, that it can't be a certain amount of square feet. I saw what Discount Tire had to redo their signage to make it about half the size that they had before. And I'd keep driving by that and thinking, well, all that money that they had to spend to redo that sign, it really didn't have very much of an impact on the drivers. It only costs, the signage people a financial gain. So there's repercussions of, ordinances that don't seem to really benefit the residents. But that's a whole nother thing. But the 6-story thing seems like more of an impact than signage. So 6 stories is a large building in a natural setting. And even though Medtronics is there now, and what is that, a 3-story or 4-story building? But this is going to be quite a bit more, along with additional parking and community services and police presence and, a whole additional realm of city services. I'm not hearing addressing that sort of thing, but I'm hearing how great it is. And then if it's a developer that is not really well known around this part of the Midwest area. So I'd like to see and hear more track records of this developer who is proposing the 6-story building, along with additional townhomes that really haven't been committed to yet, but it's overtaking the park. So there's all these resources and monies and commitments being given, basically giving the park away to other elements, taking park usage away and developing more other things in its place that aren't natural, that aren't, in nature, that aren't really helping the residents in this neighborhood, or for that matter, the whole city. I mean, you have this large area on 44th and Central, the old Rainbow site that's been sitting there for so many years with all these proposals. I haven't seen a whole driving force to make that happen, to make that a park in a residential area, and so many things could be done there. In fact, so many things that are proposed in this project in the Sullivan area could be put in that old Rainbow site, because that has, plenty of additional areas to park in. Besides, Sullivan doesn't have road access that's real apparent, without doing a major amount of road work to have access to all this additional residential and apartment areas. So I had other things to talk about, but I think I've overstayed my time. So thank you.
Thank you, Walter.
Julianne Wyckoff would like to address the council.
Good evening. My name is Julian Wyckoff, and I live at 789 Parkside Lane. I got to say, whoa to you guys. This has been moving too fast and too much. Just in a random conversation with Connie Biskins last week, what did you tell me, Connie? You said somebody had counted 85 different species of birds in that park. Why do you want to hurt them, okay? This development is much too big, and it's not going to benefit the city of Columbia Heights. It's going to hurt us. What benefit do you see beyond maybe a few more tax dollars? I haven't seen anything that this developer has done in another place that would make me trust him or I don't want him to feel welcome in the city until he proves himself to us. 53rd is already a mess. When I was working at Panera, it was horrible to use 53rd and turn north onto Central Avenue. It does not work. So you got to hold the reins down and slow things down here a bit, guys, okay? And I do not like that this developer was given the variance for impervious pavement, that he could have less impervious pavement. Well, come on, and then you're going to have how much cement in the park? And then also for this playground area? We need water runoff, guys. Come on. We need to keep that area clean, and we need to have birds there. We need to have robins walking through the grass, eating up the worms. We don't need a lot of cement. Pickleball, as you probably, I hope you all saw the article in the Star Tribune last week. If not, I'm sure there's a lot of people back there that have a copy of that article, how noisy it is. Most of my neighbors all loved the people that were using it to play Mexican soccer there for years. They were very friendly and welcoming. It was a nice place. Now it's just a deserted rat hole. I mean, it's not a pleasant place at all. A lot of buckthorn in that park. You're not doing anything to help the park, is what I'm saying. You're harming the park even more by what you're doing. Too many people, and it's not a benefit to Columbia Heights in any way at all. We all know that something is going to have to come into that area. We know that. We just ask it to be less dense, more green space, and more respectful of the neighborhood and the park and the wildlife that is in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian.
Lynn Hamilton would like to address the council. Lynn? Do you want me to give you a microphone? Do you want to sit there?
You want to sit there and use the mic? That would be great if suits your purposes. Thank you.
You'll want to hold it up pretty close to your mouth.
Pardon?
You'll want to hold it up pretty close to your mouth.
Okay. I am speaking, my name is Lynn Hamilton, and I live at 786 Parkside Lane. I've lived there for 10 years, and the reason I chose this location was because of the park and the lake. Is that coming through? Is that okay? And I have so many questions about what's happening. I mean, first of all, I have already turned in a complaint or concern. I'm echoing myself. Because the outhouses. Here, I'll hold it.
Thank you, Julian.
The outhouses, which I know are called porta potties sometimes when they're in a really, like Shakespeare in the Park or, an outdoor event, not in someone's front yard. That's not where they belong. And now, not only that, but the plan is to have the doors to the outhouses open toward the park, toward the townhomes. And that is just an abomination. I mean, in my front yard, I've got outhouses. And not only one like that was there when I moved in, but now two. And I just don't want to I don't want to be in a place that has outhouses for my yard. That's what I see when I walk out. And if you decide, or if the contractor decides to put in the pickleball courts, I have something I want you to hear. Pickleball proxy. Would you have a restful evening if you were outside enjoying the summer and had that sound in the background, or having a dinner with people outside, a barbecue? I don't think so. Thank you. If there are lights, that would definitely intrude on everyone's space. Lights for pickleball court, for basketball court, anything. It's just a beautiful park, and it needs to stay that way. And the outhouses certainly can go in a different location and not in my front yard. I'm sure that that's an option, a possibility. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lynn.
Karen Smith would like to address the council.
Hi, I'm Karen Smith, and I am the administrator of Little Voyagers Montessori School in St. Timothy's, who is on the south side of what's going on. And I have been with Little Voyagers for over 40 years in that position, and that is a nice area. And first and foremost, you are hearing it many times over, but that park is so special to this area. And to have a developer who has no interest, no commitment to this community come in and say, I want to do high density, I want to do this, and your park is going to accommodate the green space. That is totally wrong. I was to one other meeting, and I've talked to other people, and I think the thing that bothers me the most was at the last meeting, for a traffic guy to get up here and say it's not going to affect the traffic on 53rd, everybody laughed. Anyone I repeat that to on the outside, they just go, you got to be kidding. So when I feel like people get up and present something like that, and it's such an outright lie, because there's no way you can put that much density into a space and not say it's going to affect traffic. So I have a hard time believing anything that is being told. And then when I made the comment that, gosh, this is going through fast, because that's been sitting up, and I've heard kind of things in the wind before, and it wasn't settled that they had a developer, and then they did. But all of a sudden, it's like boom, 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 and for the last month, it's like, we got to hurry up and put this through. And then to have the zoning hearing the week, like few days before July 4th, which a lot of people out of town, I think, are undermining the community members so they can't go out or do something. It's that night. That upset me with the fact that I could not present or I have to stay in time instead of going and seeing my son, who I haven't seen for over a year and may not for a couple years because he goes overseas. And so it kind of irritates me that you pick such a bad time to, not you, but the zoning committee. So I understand, this is what I understand from people, that this is going to have a lot of low-income housing. And yet, someone owns Rainbow, and they want to do high-end, and they can't do high-end unless Columbia Heights meets a certain number of low-income housing. If that's what's being pushed into this development to meet that criteria, if it is, that's what I've heard, that then this developer and the city can go forth with something in Rainbow. If that is true, you are doing such a great disservice to your current residents. So I spoke about Sullivan Park. The density, I think, is unrealistic for that area, and I know with the zoning thing coming up, and now they say, well, the building's too much building, too much density, now we got to take some of the area and give a variance. You guys have codes and standards set in the city to keep your city of quality. And I feel that's where, whether it's the zoning committees, the city council, I feel like no one's being heard, and they don't feel like they're being heard. And I think you're doing a disservice to your residents, because there's a lot of people that are very committed to Columbia Heights, even though some of the things have changed. And like I said, I am with the school, so I get announcements for people that are not pleasant to have as your neighbors, such as offenders, sex offenders, and Now the zoning has been changed where they can be next to schools and that, and I've gotten, I think, 5 of them since May 1st to notify me of them being in the area. This concerns me that something is happening of a breakdown of codes and zoning and things like that to keep Columbia Heights, Columbia Heights. There's a lot of positive things that go into Columbia Heights. The last thing, because and you talk about tax dollars. My concern, you may be getting some tax dollars, but I don't know, you're going to overwhelm your police. I feel like we're going to be overrun with people jumping over our school fence and people trying to park in the church. It just, that's a fear. And then the last thing I have to say, and I've heard, this developer I don't know anything about, but if they're not even from this state and they're coming in to do something, then they leave. And whatever they leave behind. And you as a community council and the residents are the ones has to live with it going down the road. So, thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
That was the last speaker that I have.
All right. Well, thank you so much for speaking. Does anyone else like to speak at all?
I would.
All right. That's all right. If you can come up and just introduce yourself, you can, on the way back to your chair, you could fill in a form for Sarah.
I'm Marilyn Vaughn. I live at 797 Parkside Lane in the development. A nice, small, really nice development. This project overwhelms me. I agree totally with the 6-story buildings. That's overkill. And why does Columbia Heights insist on having a higher density of residents than most other cities do? We were told when I came to the Planning Commission meeting that normal is 5,000 per square mile or whatever, and the Columbia Heights is already 6,000. Yeah, I don't know if that's what I was told. I don't know if it's right or not. The traffic on Central right now is totally atrocious. Do not get on there between 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock because you're going to be parked. The developer bothered me. He would not answer, or maybe couldn't answer, questions about any other projects that they have in this area. I think he suggested Kansas or Missouri or something. I don't remember. But he couldn't tell us any place here where we could just drive by and see what the building looked like. So I wouldn't have any faith in him. Traffic circles are the bane of my life. The first time I ever saw one was in London. I thought it was wonderful. But they've had them for hundreds of years, and the people who drive there know how to use them. We have too many Minnesota nice and Minnesota not nice. So the ones who are nice are stopping when they shouldn't. The ones who should stop aren't. I think to put a traffic circle on 53rd and Central is, well, I was going to say suicide, but not. But I think it's a terrible idea. So, thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Would anyone else like to speak? All right. Well, thank you again for coming in. I will let Kevin, who'll have some answers for your questions, and this is still in flux, and so we're glad to have you here and glad to have your input. As you know, the property at the old Rainbow site, it's taken a long time, and there's kind of no guarantees on anything until there's a hole dug, it seems like. So just wanted to make sure that there's a lot of things still all happening and in flux. But I'll turn it over to Aaron, our city manager, and Kevin Hansen to answer questions.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, members of the community. I appreciate everyone coming out this evening. I think we can talk about a lot of the concerns that have been raised, and then there are some more specifics that'll have to kind of follow the natural process of the planning approval processes and park planning and future meetings that are going to take place. So the first question regarding engagement around parks master planning and opportunity for residents to contribute to park design. So there'll be additional opportunities for residents of the area to contribute to the park layout. There's been a proposed layout that is circulating, but I want to say that none of those elements other than the fitness court are really set at this time. We've heard a lot of feedback around pickleball. I think loud and clear, staff have been researching the news coming out of Maple Grove and know that a lot of cities are looking at proximity ordinances, and right now, absent of going through that engagement process, staff are pretty well convinced that pickleball might not have a home in this park just because we can't separate it far enough from any of the residential, whether it's the townhomes or the single family or the new development. So it's very likely that concept gets abandoned for Sullivan. And I think pumping the brakes on pickleball is very loud and clear. I just want to get that out there. And we'll be part of that process. Again, when the Parks and Rec Commission takes up the next level of planning and design for the playground equipment, for the restrooms, for the lift station, and all of those other elements, notices will go out to the neighborhood, and we will invite everyone in to contribute more deeply on that. The sport court was an atypical improvement that the city obviously doesn't have in any of our parks, and let me just shed some light on kind of how that evolved. So it's a partnership with the National Fitness Campaign, and they partner with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. The city did write a grant to participate in that program, and once we were awarded that grant, that campaign comes in and looks at parks, and they assign values and criteria and a numbering system that tells the city, okay, out of all the parks that you have in your city, this is where we would deploy our resources to. And from that analysis, Sullivan, through that criteria, was identified as the location where they would like to see that improvement. The city then turned to the Parks and Rec Commission to more fully deliberate on, okay, we've identified Sullivan Lake Park. It has kind of special considerations and constraints placed upon the city by that third-party partner. And where can we put it? It's a relatively small park. There was only a couple of real locations, the existing playground or the green space to the north and the west. And the Parks and Rec Commission deliberated back and forth on that location specifically and made a determination that it be sited where it's being proposed to be sited. During that process, there was concept plans of, okay, where does everything else go if the sport court is delineated in that location? And those are just concepts. So coming back to post-fitness court decision-making, there is a lot of input that we expect to take from the residents in the surrounding community to hone in on what goes in. We remove the tennis courts, what goes there? Where do we put the lift station? Where do we put, excuse me, I'm losing my screen. And there'll be room to manipulate that with the understanding that overall there isn't a lot of room in this park in general. The city does intend to put a playground back into the park, so we can say that with a great deal of certainty. But additional engagement, additional meeting opportunities. I heard a lot about just overall lack of engagement around the Medtronic redevelopment and then this park. I'd like to push back on that because the city went through a very robust engagement process on the comprehensive plan amendment. So that was almost a year from start to finish with many open houses and many public hearings and a lot of participation on amending the Medtronic's site's guidance through the comprehensive plan on what the city would like to see there. So that process, the next leg of the journey was the Planning Commission that many of the residents did attend that are here tonight to provide input on some of the elements that are being discussed this evening. One being density, 4 versus 6 stories. A lot of time was spent through the comprehensive plan amendment process to determine how do we site buildings on that property, and one of the fundamental pillars was density would be placed back towards 53rd and Central and then scaled down to the lake. The overall density and units, on the site were determined during that process as well. So the plan that was approved or recommended for approval by the Planning Commission to the City Council is representative of that comprehensive plan amendment. So it took that engagement process, the guideposts, and the outcome of that effort and delivered it in plan form very similar to the decisions that were made or articulated in the comprehensive plan amendment. So the developers delivering on essentially what the city had decided through feedback with the residents was the appropriate guidance for that site. Just going through my notes. So the impervious pavement variance has not been decided by the City Council. That hearing is scheduled for next week at the Planning Commission meeting. Mitch, is that Tuesday of next week? So I just want to there was a comment that decision had already been made. That decision needs to run through the city's Planning Commission and then ultimately the City Council. If you can't attend the Planning Commission meeting or the City Council meeting, there's absolutely an opportunity to submit comments in writing. If you're going to be gone for the weekend, you can submit those to the city via email, in writing, drop them off at City Hall. You can have a phone conversation that is, then articulated by staff at the meeting live. So I do want to emphasize that those hearings have to stay on a calendar that is set, a year in advance. So sometimes they come into alignment with holidays, and we just have to work through that. But we do have a lot of vehicles and mechanisms to still provide input to be read into the record, and would encourage those that can't attend to provide that and reach out to staff, either myself or our Community Development Director, Mitch Forney. There were comments about a connection between the Rainbow site having one type of housing versus what is being proposed at the Medtronic site. There is no such connection between the city meeting a quota of affordable housing and deciding to put it on Medtronic versus the other. So that is not part of the city's analysis. That's all I would offer. Additional clarity from Kevin. Again, a lot of the specifics related to zoning and the layout of the Medtronic site itself, and then ultimately the park, are yet to be determined. And there are many more meetings and opportunities for all of that to be discussed by all interested parties. If you watch the city's calendar on the main page, you'll be able to keep up with all of those, or reach out to any one of us at any time to make sure that you're not missing an opportunity. Kevin?
Thank you, Aaron. Mayor, members of the council, I just had a couple, Aaron covered most everything, but I just had a couple of additional items to provide information for. So at the last council meeting, we had 4 folks who stopped in with very similar but not as expanded issues. And we had a discussion out in the hall here. And I just indicated that we will have a public hearing on the park master plan late summer, early fall. And we would typically hold that up at the pavilion. When the Park and Rec Commission went through this effort, it wasn't necessarily to determine a final master plan. It was really to determine siting for the fitness court. And that's what Aaron had alluded to. So that was really the primary focus. It was always our plan to come back to and have public input on developing a final master plan, and that will still happen. So a tentative date right now is at the September Park and Rec Commission meeting for that. I think the second thing is that the lift station there has been brought up. That's the replacement of that lift station is really due to its condition. So the condition of that building and really the components of that sanitary sewer lift station was in our CIP for a number of years. So that will be replaced, and we are trying to gauge the timing of that. So the timing of that lift station replacement is scheduled currently for 2026. The type of lift station that we put in is no longer what you see there, which has a building, which has a separate wet well, dry well, that type of thing. The type of lift station that we have basically has a control panel and a backup generator. A good example, and you brought that up before, a good example of what that type of lift station is found down at our boat landing. It would be and that's our Silver Lake boat landing. It's a very similar type setup for that. So we just have a control panel there, and then we have a backup generator. So if power goes out, that the generator still runs and we don't back people up. That lift station currently does not have a backup generator on site. So when that does happen, we have to bring up a temporary to engage and to provide power to that generator, to that lift station. So that's currently planned for 2026. We have very limited places where we can put that because of existing underground piping. So that's why it's moving up front towards 51st. Again, the siting of that, there's not a lot of room where we can really place that other than closer to the street because we need to make connections to existing piping. So, but the intent of having a public hearing focusing on the park master plan, we do plan on coming back. It's always that plan with the Park and Rec Commission, and we're looking at this late summer, early fall to do that so that we can gain input. We certainly heard a lot of input through this process, and we'll continue that this fall. And we would notice everybody in this area in and around Sullivan Lake Park. Mayor?
Thank you.
Can I get a date clarification of something he just said or no?
Yes, what's a date clarification?
We got letters stating they're ripping the park out this summer,
Oh.
and he says then they're having a hearing in the.
All right, the question.
So I'm confused there.
All right, the question is, you received a letter saying they're tearing out the park this summer, and can you answer that?
Mayor, members of the council, the park that's being ripped out is the playground where the fitness court is going to go, and that's what the Park and Rec Commission determined the siting. And then we're removing the tennis courts. That'll all be restored as turf. We don't have any plan of putting anything back in. The only thing that's going in is the fitness court, which is right where the play set is. And that future time for 2 things: when the master plan is updated and completed and then approved by the council, and then when we get funding. Because we have a master plan doesn't necessarily mean that these improvements are going to be immediate. The city has to find and then determine funding for any of these improvements, which would be whatever the court replacements are, but also for a playground. We do have a grant application into the state of Minnesota for a new playground area, and we won't find that out until mid and summer what the results of that are. So we're always looking for funding, but that is something that we don't have immediate for. So the first thing we would do is we had a playground, we'd want to get that replaced, get it properly sited, and then we'd look next at sport court or what that area may become. So the condition of the tennis courts was always something that we were removing in 2025. They just were not playable. The other thing, what what really didn't help that is we had to get soil borings up there. We had to get soil borings both for the siting of the fitness court, but also for the lift station. We did it for both. And when the drill rig got up on the tennis courts, you can see it really ripped them up. So we'll be removing that over the course of this summer, removing the fencing. That gets restored. We'll seed it, so it gets restored as turf. And then the only thing that's going in new is the fitness court. And one other question came up. The size of that fitness court is 2,600 square feet. So it's 36 by 73 in that area. Mayor?
Thank you. A couple of things I was wondering is it possible to show a picture of the fitness court? Like live, can we do that? Walter mentioned he hadn't seen it yet, and I thought it would be good for there to be a visual. This isn't a part of the meeting, is this item, so we don't have these things, but if we have it on the website, and if it's not too much of a hassle, I'm asking if it is something we can show. And then there are some other questions that I have, I think that I'll just ask them now so that you know that they're a part of this, but I'm not expecting an answer right now. And I also wanted to let you know that the Park and Rec meeting is on Wednesday night. So if you'd like to go there, you can also share and ask questions at their community forum as well. And I'm just saying this so that you can see who the people are, that they're community members that volunteer to do the best they can for our community. And so I just want to kind of help share that how the people make these decisions. It's not, sorry? Okay. So that you can see that there are other people who are a part of this process and who they are. So the meeting is on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock here in the room over here with the glass windows. And a couple of questions I had heard. Yes. Can you make the picture bigger at all? The picture bigger? If we could later get numbers for the amount of concrete in the park, like the percentage, how that would differ. I heard someone ask about that it'll be a lot more concrete. So if we're taking out the tennis court, sort of what is the difference of concrete to lawn? I think that'd be a good number to have. The removing the bathrooms and the lift station, that's other concrete that would be removed. So just kind of keeping that in the numbers in there. I think an update for the people about MWMO, if there's any moving forward with their project. Something else, we might as well be talking about it at the same time. There we go. Also the question about zoning and sex offenders, which is not about Medtronic or the park, but I think it'd be good for you to know how those numbers are brought to the city as a state. So I don't have an answer for you now, but I just wanted to say they're separate, but you brought it up. And then yes, I just wanted to show a picture of the fitness court. So is there someone who could talk about the fitness court and like what we're looking at here?
Mayor, members of the council, the fitness court really has two sides. One has the equipment that you see right here, and that is intended to be equipment that is either part of any type of programming where folks could either go up and use it or for any walkers that are coming around. And then there's also instructions for each piece of equipment that you see up here for how to use it, so that's included with the fitness court. There's a center wall that has public art on it that faces towards 51st Court. And then the other side of the court, and there's two sides to this separated by the wall, it's just open area. And that's where folks could do yoga, those type of things with that. But this is generally what the fitness court has on it, is basically just an outdoor exercise area for it. And as you see here, there are instructions included with the court, so folks who are walking around doing this. The same campaign, the NFC, the National Fitness Campaign, there are about 8 or 10 fitness courts in the metro area, and they're growing those right now. So they're having success with them.
Thank you so much. I kind of wanted to show that the fitness court itself isn't a noisy space. It's really an individual space where people would, maybe they would do a yoga class together, but it's not a pickleball court. It's more of an individual, workout with your friend or whatever, and a destination. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of share more about that since some people said they didn't hear. I know that, but Walter had said that he didn't know what it was. So I wanted to make sure that. And that's not part of his concern. Was more I wanted to make sure he could see what it was. So, and we got your message about that you're not interested in pickleball. I think the city manager spoke quite clearly that we have heard that, and that is now. But that took place at the playground. So now the playground's going to be close to us too. So that's why. Isn't it just on the other side? Well, we're a part of the process, though, so I just want to make sure everyone understands. They're not coming tomorrow and digging things. But that's just how we do things, though, is that we hear from you and then we do make changes. So I know when you see a picture, sometimes it looks like it's done forever. We have gone through multiple differences in this place and this building here. I mean, this is a part of it. So you giving this input and us being flexible and moving things around, that's a part of the process. So you are already doing the right thing to be here, and we are already showing that we're making changes. So, yes. I don't know if we have anything else, but then we'll move on to the next item because this isn't an actual topic of our agenda. I just wanted to make sure that you felt heard and that you see that there are things already moving along in the change. So don't drop out after this meeting is what I'm saying. All right, we have one more thing.
Mayor, members of the council, just the siting of the siting of the play set is shown, and that would certainly be part of the master plan effort. So exactly that, continue, and we'll hear what folks say when we go through that effort with our Park and Rec Commission and do our best to locate it that minimizes, I think, the residents' concern, particularly for noise.
Yes, so thank you very much for being here. And one more thing, Walter, yes. Can you come up to the microphone, actually, if you're going to stand up, I guess? And I'll just say that when we speak in here, if it's not on the microphone, it is not on the recording. So people are going to watch the video and just hear me talk, and they won't know what anyone's saying. So I'm not trying to be picky. We just want to make sure everyone hears you.
Yeah, I just had a question on the fitness court. I know I go to Lifetime Fitness, and they're always maintaining their equipment, like every day. Mm-hmm. How is this outdoor fitness court maintained for the long term?
Thank you. Good question. All right. Well, thank you. And if there's no one else here to speak on the community forum, then we will move on. But is there anyone else here to speak on another item? All right. Well, thank you so much for your participation and for being here this evening. And look forward to seeing you at more meetings. And like I said, the Parks and Rec meeting is on Wednesday night, Park and Rec. All right. Our next item for the agenda is our consent agenda. These items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted as part of the consent agenda by one motion. Does the council have any questions on the consent agenda? No? All right. Then we'll have our city manager go through the items.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you. First item on the consent agenda is approval of the April 28th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes. Item 2 is approval of the May 8th, 2025 emergency City Council meeting minutes. Item 3 is approval of the June 9th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes. And item 4 is the second reading of Ordinance 1715, which is amending Chapter 8 of the city's code related to fire service fees. So we've updated and added and made more clear the city's ability to implement fees related to services provided by the fire department. And I would add, as part of this process, the city council had requested that the policy framework be developed for this ordinance, and the fire chief and assistant fire chief have produced a draft of the policy framework that I will distribute to the city council via email. It's not something that will require formal adoption, but something that we will, amend from time to time if necessary, but I think we've got a really good foundation for implementation of the fees and that structure. And bear in mind that this ordinance, after the second reading, does not take full effect for another 30 days. Item 5 is second reading of ordinance 1717, which is amending Chapter 3 of the City Code relating to the Youth Commission. So just some updates around the application and intake and time that these appointments are made throughout the year. Item 6 is Resolution 2025-56, which is the city authorizing application to Minnesota Management and Budget for the 2026 capital budgeting session. So every 2 years, the city has to essentially authorize the application for, in this case, the Municipal Service Center. So we're just rebooting that effort, same request more or less, same project, but reserving a place in line so that we can submit that bonding request during the 2026 capital budgeting process. Item 7 is Resolution 2025-57, which is amending the city's Fund 225 budget for the installation of production cameras here in the City Council chambers as part of the upgrade to the new production service with 9 North and equipment needed that will speak to the switchboard essentially that's utilized by their team. So we wanted to have the same switching that they utilize at all of their sites. We had thought in our initial investigation that the existing cameras might be compatible, but upon further review, they are not. So this resolution updates or amends the cable fund budget in this case, and then we are authorizing the purchase of the replacement cameras. Item 8 are the routine rental occupancy licenses for approval. Item 9 are the routine business licenses for approval. And finally, item 10, review of the bills for this period, which total $1,641,044.60. Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the council? Councilmember James?
Thank you, Mayor. On item number 7 in the staff letter had said where the funding is coming from 225 and it has a fund balance. Is this an additional expense or is we just changing the allocation within the fund balance there?
This is an additional expense, so although the expenditure limit would fall within the city manager's authorization, a budget amendment does not. So these funds were not appropriated. So this is an additional expense to that budget to make this formally possible. So contract authorization and execution, I can take place on my end, but I can't, of course, unilaterally amend a budget. So fund budget resolution had to come before the council.
Thank you. Councilmember Biskins, did you have your hand up? All right. Any other comments? Councilmember Deneen?
I will say that it's too bad that our cameras don't line up with their system. I know that that's so frustrating, but I am happy that we're making all efforts to make sure that our meetings are open and accessible to everyone in the community, because not everybody can be here in person. So it's really important that we have those resources available to people. So thanks for all your work on that.
Thank you. Can you share with us what will happen to the old cameras that are not that old? People are going to wonder what we were doing with them.
I'm going to defer to our IT director, Jesse Hoff. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Jesse.
Of course, happy to be here. Madam Mayor, members of the council, with the old cameras, I would intend that these could go to an auction. Public Works has been holding auctions lately, and I know our street superintendent has been working on another one coming up. So I was going to send these cameras and actually the ones from the old City Hall as well to that auction. They're not very high quality cameras, but they do hold value. So there is some value that the residents can get back from that.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, I'm very glad to have, as Councilmember Deneen said, glad to have them be able to sync up. And I also would like to point out that I really like how the screens look. I like the new branding at the bottom. I think it looks very professional. So I'm glad to see that change. Excuse me. And I know this is the second reading for the fire department fees, but just want to say I'm glad to have this update for the fire department as well. And glad that we have a new assistant fire chief to kind of help with this workload to move us forward in this way. So thankful we can move this forward. All right, if there's no other comments, then I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Bizgins and a second by Councilmember Deneen to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes. Next, we will go into our, we have no public hearings, but we'll go to items for consideration. Under ordinances and resolution, we have item 11, approval of the third loan modification with Lattice for the 4300 Central Avenue Northeast redevelopment site. And Mitch Forney, our Community Development Director, will take us through this.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, before you this evening is a loan modification for a loan that we have with Lattice LLC. As you are all aware, in 2021, the city partnered with Lattice for the purchase of the priority redevelopment site at 4300 Central. With this, the city bonded in order to fund a loan to Lattice for the purchase, demolition, and to cover other costs associated with the project, to include environmental testing and newer cost, which is the traffic study to integrate the project with the Central Avenue design that is currently going on. With that, in May of 2023, the city extended that initial loan term agreement to the end of 2023, and then rebonded to pay back the 2021 bonds, setting a new set of bonds and a new loan, which is the current loan term that we are discussing this evening. That current term ends on July 31st of 2025, though the bonds are due back on February 1st of 2026. So for you this evening is an amendment to the current loan agreement, extending the loan term for Lattice to December of 2025. This will extend the time that Lattice and city staff have to identify the path forward with regards to the project. And then it also extends the final draw date for the project funds, which will allow Lattice to use the current traffic study that is going on right now and pay for that traffic study, which would not be allowed under the old agreement. With regard to the project, Lattice has been a very responsive and eager partner, constantly looking at ways to get this development going. But with current market conditions, it has made it very difficult. And so this space and time with the loan amendment will give the city staff, city council, and Lattice the ability to have a little bit of space in identifying a path forward and moving the project forward. But it also, it doesn't set the city up for failure or anything. It just gives that little bit of time. We'll still be able to have a solution for the bond repayment in February, and plenty amount of time from December to February to get those bonds repaid as we move the project forward. With that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember James.
Thank you so much, Community Development Director Forney. I am very concerned about our city having this space undeveloped. I think that's everyone on council's probably number one question that we get everywhere we go is what's happening on 43rd and Central and why is it taking so long, and the grass is over my head, and it's just, it's distressing that that's still happening. I'm really grateful that there is an organization that is working toward developing that, and I still believe in the plan. I'm getting concerned about the time. I did notice in the staff letter, it says at the February 1st, 2026 deadline, if we choose to extend this, the bonds must be repaid whether Lattice has closed on their phase 1 permanent financing or not. And so for me, I see that as a a bit of protection for the city, but I am interested to know what are the multiple paths forward that Atlantis and the city are considering, so that we know what we are giving space to.
Thank you. Great question.
I think I'll jump in here. I've had some of the more recent conversations with the city's redevelopment council as well as public finance consultants at Ellers. So first I would add commentary about what happens if Lattice, exits the project and we split that partnership. So the city is ultimately responsible at that point for repayment of the bond funds. So a Lattice not, performing on a loan with the city does not reduce our obligation to find a way to pay for those bonds and pay that back. So right now, staff are certainly most interested in continuing the partnership and finding a path forward, because the alternative, let's say the nuclear option of losing a Lattice as a partner after all they've invested and then also having to repay the bond funds, is not a positive outlook. So ways that we can do that, there are a couple of ways. There are a couple of different bond options that are being explored that we will drill deeper into in the coming months with a Lattice and with all of our consultants to determine what's the most feasible and how we fund that. We're not to that agreement yet. And again, this is providing the space to more fully negotiate that. We are talking about a bridge between when these bonds expire and when we expect the project to start. And I could lean in a little heavier on Barrett from Lattice, who's here tonight, to provide some commentary on more specifically where they are in negotiations with potential funding partners. But there is the potential, if we can't resolve an agreement with a Lattice in a timely manner that either the council's comfortable with or that a Lattice can commit to, that the city takes the property back, right? So a loan default by a Lattice and then an impasse through negotiations, that is really what we're talking about. The city taking back ownership and title to the property, which is an investment, right? So when the initial decisions were made by the city council more than 4 years ago, this was certainly discussed, right? What happens? We make this loan, we bond for these funds, and if the project doesn't come to fruition in a way that we are expecting, what are we left with? Well, the answer, we don't want to get to that point, but ultimately, if we take title to the property, we have an asset that we can deploy with a new concept plan or a new partner that still has value. The city's not underwater, even with the debt that's being carried now and the prospect of refinancing. So we acquired it, certainly, at a risk management threshold at that time, at a price that was favorable to provide some wiggle room. We're reaching the extents of that, with refinancing, potentially here for a third time, but there's still equity in the site at the moment, and its potential to transform the trajectory of, not only the Central Avenue corridor, but, driving the economic engine of the city to where we want it to go. So we can't take back that decision. We can only find strategies to move forward and work ourselves out of this. There is most definitely a path forward, and conversations with the Lattice, are weekly. Staff are being updated on their progress. And they're looking at every possible angle, ways to, rework half of the site to get an earlier start on portions of it. Every funding partner that's possible across the country, not just the state of Minnesota. So staff want to drive towards the vision that we set forth, initially, and retain a partner that has proven. We're all standing in a building that is proof of the ability to deliver, and this project had many twists and turns, as the council recalls, and there were a lot of different ledges that we stood on, you know, and worked our way out of it, and managed risk every step of the way. It was always a calculation, and every move, every major decision went to that brink, and then we stepped off. And we're in, you know, a very similar situation here, but no matter what the outcome is, we will develop on that site, and we have taken control of the city's future in a really important way. So at the time that the city acquired this site, Hy-Vee was the owner. They were just trying to, you know, rid themselves, dissolve themselves of land holdings across the entire metro. And there was a real concern by the council at that time, and staff certainly, of who might be able to acquire that site at a fire sale level of really is where it was. It was very, very reasonable asking price. And we knew some of the individuals, you know, interested in acquisition and what their potential plans were. And we could have frozen that building, you know, into a 1960s strip mall with a few tenants coming and going for the foreseeable future. So it was a bold, you know, step. It was an investment in the city's future, and we're still working towards that. Another thing I would add is some of the things that the city expects to achieve from an infrastructure development perspective would not happen but for that bold, you know, decision making. So we've been plagued by 100-year-old sewer backup problem in that entire region of the city that does not get resolved if you don't invest, you know, in purchasing the site and finding a way to redevelop it. There's an undersized stormwater pond that's in the same position. You know, we don't get an opportunity to fix these legacy issues without the scale of redevelopment. So hindsight being what it is, take the, you know, global economic impacts that were seen from a pandemic that we couldn't predict, and then kind of the uncertainty and strain of federal policy making at the moment, and it's making it hard. But we're subject to that. That is our reality. We still intend to deliver on the expectations of the community and the city council and the vision for the concept. But we have to find a way to work through that, and this is the first step. And the next months are going to be very important, you know, and we'll be working with you, I think, monthly on certainly updates, but the approvals to find that bridge financing option that's going to work for both parties. I know that's a lot. I know that's a bit of a rambling assessment, but I think it's important to kind of step back and look at how we got to here today, and that it's been a fairly long journey, but these projects do take commitment, the ability to adapt, partnerships, and that's where we're at. I think if the city was faced with acquiring the site in 2021, absent a partner that was willing to come along and say, yeah, we believe in the community, we want to invest in your future, I think the recommendation would have been to acquire it as a city as well at that time. So that's all I would offer. Councilmember Biskins, and then any additional update or nuance that Barrett Corwin could provide. I'm sure he would, you know, answer some questions too, but Councilmember Biskins.
Another nail biter. This is another nail biter. I myself personally am going to stay positive because I would love to work with Alatus with that project. The potential for that site is huge. And while you were talking, Aaron, I remembered before Hy-Vee bought it, it was Rainbow Site. And it was owned, correct me if I'm wrong, it was owned by investors who did not want to do anything. They didn't even want to sell the project. And so Joe Hogeboom, who was the community development director at that time, was shopping around, and he kept saying nobody's interested. He was trying to find a grocery store. And lots of folks weren't interested, and I said, well, the squeaky wheel gets the, gets the attention, right, Joe? I remember telling him, and he finally landed Hy-Vee. So back before this building was going to stay put regardless, and he managed to get Hy-Vee to buy it. Well, then Hy-Vee changed their plans with the way the market changed in the grocery during COVID, and they backed off in lots of places, not just Columbia Heights. But at this time, it's just another nail biter. You know, we wait, we cross our fingers and think positive and hope that we're able to get everything done. You guys did a beautiful job with this building. I would like something like that to continue in that spot. So that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Connie. It's a great reminder. I think that it may be a great thing to have a timeline from 20 years ago, or when Rainbow left, 15 years ago when Rainbow left, just to see like all the things that have happened behind the scenes that that we just didn't know, especially the pandemic and how things would change with online shopping, et cetera. So just a reminder for the community too of one, how things change, and two, how things pivot so quickly, but also things take a long time. Like, it's a perfect example to that. And thank you for asking that question. I know that it makes me nervous too to hear that we're so tied to that piece of property. But I'm going to stay positive as well. When I look at Lexington Avenue, I see all the development on that road by Target and all the shopping and the apartments and hotel, and that place is so vibrant compared to what it was before, and I just see that we have the same opportunity here. So, yeah, so I just want to share that. Laurel, do you have anything you want to add?
Sure. I, along with you, have my concerns. I know our community has concerns of just seeing this property vacant and overgrown for so long, and I think that I also am sharing that positive hope that we move forward and that things work out. I think that we all share the concerns of the community, and I think that going forward it's going to be really important just to be transparent and have those monthly updates, especially as we work through this process, that the community can watch these videos and get an update on where we are with it, because being transparent and being accountable for any decisions, whether it was made now or 4 years ago or back when Hy-Vee was the ownership, I think it's just really important for people to know that we are trying to steward this property as best we can and as responsible as possible. So I thank you for your work, and I thank you for all that you've said, because it really gives a timeline, it gives a backstory, and it really shows why we're really gung-ho for this, because there are those legacy problems that we really need to address, and this is a really great opportunity to do so. But given that, I would love to hear from Lattice to see where they are with the financing.
Thank you.
Speaking to the microphone so I'm heard here.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, council members, staff, thanks for having me today. My name is Barrett Corwin. I'm the Director of Development for Lattice. I reside at 2825 Chowan Avenue South, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Again, thank you for having me here today to talk about the development. There's a lot to unpack when we talk about the challenges of the 4300 site, but I think the history is really important. I think just, Aaron stated everything very correctly and astutely, but just to add a little bit, the last year and a half was tirelessly working to try and secure a grocer for the site, and that comes along with, the ins and the outs, the curb cuts, the truck loading, all of the engineering that was put forth to try and make that happen. And I think we all know who we had on the line, and a little bit at the last second, they pulled out of the entire state of Minnesota. So 13 sites were on the table for them. They declined all 13 in the end. That was not expected. It was expected they would choose 3 to 5, but they chose 0. On the financing side, we're approaching this from a few different angles. The first one, which we've explained to the city manager in our monthly meetings and our weekly catch-ups, is an alternative financing route with a nonprofit associated. We have been working with them for the last 6 months to form a relationship to try and create housing in the Twin Cities. This would be project number 2 in the line for them to complete with us. So We're dead set on that as the investor and the right owner and the right structure for this community. Also, in the background, as Aaron mentioned, and at Alatus, we don't like to compromise on our vision, but given the state of the market, we have been working through some redesign on the eastern side of the site that faces the neighborhoods towards University off Central. That's correct, right? Right, the eastern side?
The
Okay.
the non-central
The non-central
side of the
side
project.
site.
Yep.
Western side of the site. There you go. And really, what we've come to understand is that keeping the pond and a park feature on that furthest western side is the fastest way to get a project and some development going on the site. Obviously, the intention and the best catalyzing project would be the density along Central.
Real quick, just not keeping the pond in its current
No.
aesthetic condition. It would be in that vicinity, but completely redesigned.
And a fence around it, a big fence around it. But then also some park amenities. And obviously we heard tonight how passionate your community is about parks and what we want there. And we would be open and happy to have a forum and discuss exactly what that looks like. Originally, the design had single family and some townhomes up right against the neighborhoods there. And digging in with the engineers, the cost to relocate that stormwater pond, today, if we want to get going, we really want to keep that where it's at. Those soils are not great for development, as you might imagine. So keeping the cleaning of the soils and the import-export to a minimum, and then keeping the grid in line there would actually be a much simpler way to proceed with development on that side. And today, single family is a lot easier to finance than large 250, 300 unit multifamily buildings. In addition, we would love to take you guys through Lexington, through our new building that opened January 1st. That has no subsidy and is 50% affordable at 60% AMI. It's a great mix of people and folks, and it's a great community. We look to get that. We were excited to get that on the schedule so we can show you the design of the building on Central is almost identical to that building. I think it would be just a great experience to walk folks through that, just to see what was accomplished at a time when really no building permits were getting done in St. Paul. It's something we're proud of. Something not many other developers are proud of us for, but we're happy to put our name on it. I think it shows, though, that we are going to stick to our vision and stick to what we promise and commit to do. That was more than 20 amendments on the purchase agreement with Wilder Foundation, the non-for-profit that we purchased the land from. So we are steadfast in our vision, but given the circumstances, given the timing, we're looking at alternatives to that western portion of the site to try and get things going. If we can get the stormwater addressed and we can get some money through the door for that housing and just lessen the load, lessen the risk on the city, get everyone really comfortable that we're moving in the right direction, that's what we're aiming to do. And as Mitch stated, the traffic study is in works. One of the main things we're working through is the in and the out, or the potential thereof, off Central. Nothing is certain yet, I think that's fair to say, but that will certainly impact the commercial that is on Central or would be willing to come on to Central, and potentially how we format the uses up against Central, whether or not we get the in and the out. Does that mean we want people coming in off 42nd and 43rd, or 43rd and 44th? And that's more of a residential entry and exit. So with get long-winded, but with sort of the grocer and our full force not being on the grocer anymore, we are looking at different avenues and we are becoming flexible. The other thing that I'd note, and Aaron mentioned the volatility with the federal legislation, opportunity zones look to be renewed again, not for sure, but this site isn't an opportunity zone. When we originally had this agreement, this site as well as in an opportunity zone is financed by opportunity zone equity investors. That market is hopefully going to return here into 2026. So we are feeling everywhere that we can, and we're looking forward to moving this project forward as fast as we can.
Thank you. Glad you're here. Okay, Councilmember Biskins.
Before I forget, because I know I will, you might want to talk to MWMO about the Towers project with their kind of pond and area that they had for water retention. It's a really cool space. It'd be something probably similar. Ours is bigger, but definitely check in with them. So very excited. Looking forward to the next set of plans coming before us and that everything falls together finally. And thanks for all the work you did to try to find a grocery store for the city. We appreciate that, and the residents appreciate it, but I'm glad we're moving forward. I keep saying, though, it'd be a great space for a food court like they have in Minneapolis. Some of those food courts, it would be very busy in this city. So anyway, thanks.
There's definitely still opportunities on the site for food and beverage components. We'll put it that way. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember
Thank you,
James.
Councilmember Beskins.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Barrett, for coming in and speaking with us. 2 comments. The big picture, I am excited to have this development in the middle of our city. I'm grateful for the partnership of Atlantis, and I can see the vision. Like you said, the Lexington building is wonderful, and other Atlantis projects are doing really well. For this small picture, the come before us today is looking at extending the length of these bonds. As our city manager stated, this agreement has already been in place, and now our only risk is, do we extend it or do we not extend it? That's all we're looking at today. With the asset of having the site, I feel like our risk is low, knowing that it's a $6.6 million loans that we are extending. We're here, the loans are given, and now we have to decide what we're going to do. So for those who are wondering, I do think it's a good idea to give you more time to get those, finalize those plans. I also appreciate reworking the site to take into account the stormwater and what's happening now, as long as we can maintain the infrastructure upgrades to the rest of the stormwater sewer system that's necessary to have that many more residents in that small of a space. We'll need to have those upgrades. So yes, I am in favor of extending the bonds, knowing that we are all hoping that this agreement with Atlantis works out, but if not, we have an asset to keep us safe. So that's my last comment.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, well, thanks for being here today, and I think we're ready to move forward then.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks. All right, then I have a motion. If there's no other comments, then I have a motion to waive the reading.
Move to waive the reading of Resolution 2025-054. There being ample copies available to the public.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Biskins and a second by Councilmember James to waive the reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. And next we have a motion to approve the resolution.
Move to approve Resolution 2025-054, a resolution approving modification of certain terms of a loan from the city to Atlantis Columbia Heights 2 LLC and approving forms of third amended and restated loan documents.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Biskins and a second by Councilmember James to approve the resolution. Any discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes. Thank you. And our next item is a bid consideration, item number 12. This was an addition to our meeting. Adopt Resolution 2025-55, being resolution accepting bids and awarding a contract for 40th Avenue utility construction for City Project 2404, and Kevin Hansen, city engineer, will take us through this item.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is a project that replaces the utilities, specifically the water main, and then also the sanitary sewer manholes and a segment on 40th Avenue from Main Street over to University Avenue. We wanted to get this work done prior to the county really reconstructing 40th Avenue, in large part because of the depth of the sanitary that's there. So the manholes are about 25 feet deep. And we want to make sure that we have time in case there is any type of settlement after this work is done, that is done prior to the road work taking place. So we went through the bidding process, advertised, and received bids on Friday. And that, in part, was the reason why was not showing up on your initial agenda here. We did receive 5 bids. And the low bid is coming in from A1 Excavating. They haven't worked in town, but we're familiar with A1 Excavating. They do a lot of work over on the east side of town. They're out of Bloomer, Wisconsin. They're consistent. They were about 2% over the engineer's estimate for this project, but they're consistent with that. We actually had a pretty good range for the bids that we did receive, so we feel very comfortable with recommending to you for the award of contract to A1 Excavating for this work. I would note that a portion of the sanitary only, not water main, but the sanitary is eligible for grant reimbursement. And that is not in advance, that is a pay-as-you-go, so we'd ask for reimbursement. And that is a 50-50 grant, so it's less than 50% of the cost of the sanitary work. Mayor?
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions or comments? All right, thank you. Then may I have a motion to waive the reading?
Motion to waive the reading of Resolution 2025-55, there being ample copies available to the public.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Deneen and a second by Councilmember James to waive the reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. And next we have a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2025-55, being a resolution accepting bids and awarding the 40th Avenue Utility Construction City Project 2404 to A1 Excavating LLC of Bloomer, Wisconsin, based upon their low qualified responsible bid in the amount of $848,848, with $480,233 from Fund 651.5185.
Second.
I have a motion by...
There's a part on the next
Yeah, I
page.
did. I missed
Sorry
it.
about that.
And $368,615 from Fund 652-5185, and furthermore to authorize the mayor and city manager to enter into the contract for the same.
Now I'll say second. Thank you.
I have a motion by Councilmember Deneen and a second by Councilmember James to adopt the resolution. Any discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes. Thank you. That takes us to our city council reports. And so we will start with, yes, I was going to say, if that's all right with you. All right. I do have a statement I'd like to read I'll read this statement. The Columbia Heights City Council is shocked and horrified by the brutal assassination of Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and the attempted assassination of Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. Our hearts are broken by this unconscionable act of political violence. We stand in mourning and solidarity with the families, friends, and communities who are grieving this devastating loss. Speaker Emerita Hortman and Senator Hoffman have been unwavering advocates for a more inclusive, safe, and welcoming Minnesota, and their leadership has left a lasting impact on our state. While robust political debate is essential to democracy, violence can never be a part of that conversation. This tragedy underscores the growing threat of extreme political rhetoric and the dangerous consequences of normalizing hate and fear. Words matter. When hate is allowed to flourish unchecked, it can and does lead to horrific outcomes. The Columbia Heights City Council remains firmly committed to the principles of civil dialogue, dedicated public service, and mutual respect. We are resolute in our efforts to build a future where violence has no place and where those who serve our communities are safe, valued, and honored. And this was created by all of us. Laurel Deneen made the draft, and we all read and approved this message. But we can now move forward with our reports.
Would you like me to start?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for reading our statement. I think when the news came out that we were first hearing about it, many of us received text messages and phone calls from family and friends. And while I don't think any city council members were targeted, just to know that people who are working on behalf of our communities were targeted, it really made everyone stop in fear and questioning, what are we doing? What are we doing as a city, as a society? And in the weeks that follow, I mean, I have talked to 20 people here in Columbia Heights who had a personal connection with one of the 4 victims. And some people knew Yvette Hoffman through her work in early childhood. And some people know Senator Mark Hoffman through his work for advocating for disabilities. And Columbia Heights residents have worked with Melissa Hortman in many ways. And it was shocking to our elected officials that represent Columbia Heights, to our representatives and our senator here. And so I encourage our residents to reach out to your elected officials, especially those at the statewide level, and share your support, and also to stand up for this this rhetoric and the way that hate and fear has been conversations. I know many of us have received questions about, why do you even want to serve in public office if this is what's going to happen to you and to your family? Also, this week, on the other side of the coin, we held a peace breakfast on June 10th. The mayor was the MC, and we did a lot of work to invite nonprofit organizations and churches and other faith organizations who are working for peace in our city. And this has been planned for a while based on our city's City of Peace designation. And it was a wonderfully peaceful event. We had meditation, and we had words of peace and opportunities from a wide variety of community members. I know we'll continue this in the future, and the Peace Breakfast was an oasis for our city. So thank you to all the volunteers for that. On June 11th was the graduation, so congratulations to the 2025 class of Columbia Heights High School. You have made a very important mark in our city. I also attended the Art and Info Fair at Husett Park. It was a wonderful event. Thank you to all of the sponsors and all of the people who came out and learned about our city. That same evening, Silverwood Park held its Juneteenth celebration just across the border, and I was able to attend and listen to the band there, Brass Solidarity, and to speak with community members and vendors who are working on that. Thank you to Kevin Hansen, our city engineer. In the past month, we've been working with a resident who had some concerns about the safety of Stinson Avenue south of 45th. City engineer reviewed the situation and met with the resident, ended up placing signage for a steep hill ahead, as well as advisory speed limits. And there's plans in the future to do some additional painting of curb lines to make sure that there's less vehicles stopped in lane there. And so thank you to the residents who were concerned about their neighborhood and who reached out. And then just today I met with the assistant superintendent of the Minneapolis Waterworks, which is located within Columbia Heights, to discuss the easement issues on the south side of the waterworks. There's been a lot of trees and deadfall that have been impacting power lines. And a side note, I know folks are concerned about power outages. I do encourage you to take a look at your trees in your property and surrounding properties and see how they may be impacting the power lines, and to contact Xcel Energy if necessary or get those trimmed up. That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Biskins.
Hello, everybody. I guess I want to thank Councilmember Deneen, Mayor Amata, and Councilmember James for putting the letter together about Melissa and the 3, her husband, and then Mr. Hoffman, Senator Hoffman and his wife. It's still a shock to me. I still have a hard time believing that this happened. I mean, she was involved in so many different things, and she was really good at reaching out to the Republican side too, including them in the discussions and the things that they did. But she also was very strong in standing up to them when she needed to, and doing something simple as just bringing in a bunch of trees at the Capitol and redoing that whole space. It's still hard to believe. So anyway, thank you for doing that. As far as events, the last 2 weeks, I did a guided tour for a group that came from the library at Blooming Sunshine Garden. About 8 people, I believe, that came. It was really fun to educate them about how the garden started, what things we're working on, what the focus is of that garden. And I also continue volunteering there. And again, it's a reminder for the community that this is a pick your own for free. Take what you need and leave the rest for others. It's coming along very well. In fact, somebody tonight just cleaned out the shed and reorganized, and I can't believe it's the same room. Nice. So anyway, I know Mayor Amata would appreciate that, Marquez. Second, I attended, I was going to attend Pool with Cop, but because of the search that they're doing for that 16-year-old boy, that was canceled. I also helped host Through Heights Next, a movie on plastic people. It was quite educational to learn how microplastics are affecting us and our bodies, and it's a whole new thing that we don't know much about, but we had a good group there that had a lot of questions afterward, and we had a very good discussion afterwards. I attended a goodbye party for a couple, Lindsay and Mike Shell, who are leaving Columbia Heights to move on to Arizona, so that was fun to see folks from the community and also just to say goodbye to them. I always hate when people move out of our city. I don't like that. I want you to stay. So, and then I participated in the Art Info Fair with the Heights Next table and the City Council table. And in between those two tables, I took a break and watched the Raptor presentation that Will set up. That was so cool. It was just so cool. It was very good. So I thank him for doing that, and thank all the staff and all the people that were involved in setting that up. It's become quite an event, and it was nice to see. And today just worked on Immersion Hall. I'm with the beautification committee, so worked on Immersion Hall flower pots, gave them plenty of water after getting through a weekend of heat, and trying to clean up the the old City Hall garden so that it's at least somewhat presentable for our Jamboree parade and events that will be coming up this coming weekend. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Biskins. And Councilmember Deneen.
Thank you. I also want to say how shocked I was about the events that happened, and just that I'm thinking of the families and that it's horrible and unconscionable, and hopefully, there's no real hope there. It's just a horrible thing that happened, and it was shocking. So I think everything that we've said already, everybody has said what I need to say. So I'll move on to my activities for the last few weeks. On June 11th, I attended a planning meeting for this year's Columbia Heights Pride event, which I'm really looking forward to. That's going to be taking place on September 13th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Cordiac Park. So that's very exciting. We like to do it in the fall, so we're not in competition with Twin Cities Pride, and we have a really great atmosphere, very kid-friendly. So please bring your families and have a great time. On June 13th, I attended the joint swearing-in ceremony for our two new police officers, Thaddeus Newby Jr. and Clarence Hyatt Duncan. We want to once again extend our congratulations and welcome those officers into the force in Columbia Heights. On June 18th, I attended a local progress meeting where we discussed current immigration actions and unlawful detainment, as well as how we can work to protect and inform our immigrant communities as elected officials. On June 18th, I volunteered at the city's Art and Info Fair at Huset Park. It was great to meet so many communities and talk to them about our boards and commissions and the opportunities to volunteer here in the city. And then on June 19th, I attended the Heights Next Juneteenth picnic at Huset Park. It was great to see the beginnings of a new Juneteenth celebration being planned in Columbia Heights, and I look forward to what they bring next year as well. And that's it for me.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, in addition to our words for the assassination a week and a half ago, I guess, that Senator John Hoffman, he was working with our seniors at the Legends apartment building, and Councilmember Justice Spriggs and I were meeting with them a lot. And we met with him at the Capitol with residents as well. He was really outspoken to talk about rent control, especially for seniors, and just a very active person. So knowing that, even though he wasn't representing Columbia Heights initially, his work with helping seniors and affording their rent, he was helping our whole state. And I think that's something to think of when you are thinking what our local residents or our local electeds, they just work in one area, but they really don't. They're representing a whole community and across the state. And another shocking thing in that was that our sister city in Poland also contacted me because they saw the news in Poland. And how tragic it is to have Minnesota in international news for such terrible events that, when we've been to Europe before, people know Minnesota from the Vikings, but now they know about George Floyd, other murders that have happened, and then the assassination. It is so hateful and awful. I'm so thankful that in Columbia Heights we do have such a wonderful community spirit here. Love to hear what Councilmember James said about our peace breakfast. We really do strive as a community for peace. And I think and hope that everyone, no matter where you place yourself in a political realm, that you see everyone as a person and that everyone is doing the best they can. And if you don't agree with them, you still see them as a person first. Over the past 2 weeks, I had thought I hadn't done very many things until I wrote them all down. But we had our peace breakfast, as Councilmember James said. We had over 120 people in attendance. We had delicious food from Fix Coffee, but a wonderful reminder for our city's commitment to peace. We do have a debrief meeting on Wednesday, and at that time we'll find out our final numbers of the profits that will be donated to Missions, Inc. In Columbia Heights. Attended the swearing-in ceremony for our 2 new police officers on June 13th for Officers Thaddeus and Clarence, and we're so grateful for their service and dedication to our community safety. They and their families were in my thoughts the next morning when the chief called me to tell me about the assassinations, just for our police officers, all the work they do, and then every time something terrible like this happens, they are also affected in their own families, in their jobs, to our community, and just want to share how grateful I am to our officers and their families for supporting them. Excuse me, I attended the Art and Info Fair on the 18th, volunteered at the Heights Next booth where I helped hand out native pollinator flower seeds and connected with community members about sustainable living. Also had attended the Plastic People movie with Connie, Councilmember Bisgins, at our library. Thank you to the library for partnering with Heights Next on that. There was a lot of shout outs that we need to have less plastic. So we said we heard that loud and clear. The next day, on June 19th, we had our first Juneteenth celebration. This came together with our PTO member who was attending our last council meeting, Nisha Perry, and I put that together, and Heights Next helped support that. We had about 25 people gather to honor the important day, and we all sang "Lift Every Voice and Sing." We shared hot dogs, potluck dishes, and cake, and reflected on the ongoing work toward freedom and justice for all. This past Sunday, I attended Jalou Dorji's high school graduation party at Mersion Hall. And Jalou Dorji has been recognized as the 8th reincarnation of Turchen Takshim Rinpoche. It's a significant milestone. The Mersion Hall was fuller than I've ever seen it for an event. It was fantastic. The decor and food was amazing. And also, during this significant time in the Tibetan Buddhist month, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama has his 90th birthday coming up in a couple weeks, and I do hear that he is coming to Minnesota. So we may be able to welcome him even to Columbia Heights. I also attended the 10-year anniversary at the Meditation Center, and we were going to have a proclamation this evening. That didn't work. We'll do it at the next meeting, but it was a busy day, and to just remember that we do need to bring peace into our own hearts, and meditation is one way to do that. But all of the speakers who came to Columbia Heights said what a great partner we have been to them as a community, and how glad they are to be here. So that's it for my report. I say thank you, and just love to be in Columbia Heights here. I'll take it to our city manager then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Just some routine calendar updates and then some responses to the community forum questions from the last meeting. Recap of the Art and Info Fair, I'd like to thank all of the staff that put the time in to pull that event off. Special shout out to Will Rotler and Public Works staff who are integral to setting up the entire event. So it went very well. We had great weather, and staff estimate that around 250 people attended the event this year. Jamboree kicks off this week. The parade is notable. That's Friday, June 27th at 6 p.m. And the fireworks display is also very popular, and that is Saturday, June 28th at dusk. If there's any weather considerations, it would be rescheduled for Sunday evening, but things look pretty good right now. Safe Streets for All open house this week. So residents are encouraged to stop by City Hall tomorrow, June 24th from 5 to 7 p.m. to review the draft plan and provide feedback on proposed improvements for the Transportation Safety Action Plan. And then on June 30th at 6 p.m., the City Council will convene with the school board for the annual joint work session, and that'll be at the high school. And that's it for calendar. And let me just pull up comments related to the open forum at the last council meeting. So a lot of what I was prepared to speak on this evening actually took place in this evening's open forum related to the redevelopment of the Medtronic site in the Sullivan Lake Park. So I'll just acknowledge that I want to thank City Engineer, Public Works Director Kevin Hansen for meeting with the individuals that had met at the last council meeting to discuss that item, and had a conversation with updates following the meeting, and then there was subsequent exchange via email. So I just wanted to thank Kevin for that communication effort. Additionally, that evening, there was a resident that spoke about the 37th Avenue improvements that recently concluded, and then the Heart Lake area in particular. So a question was asked about amenities being added in now that the project's done, specifically bus stop benches and garbage cans post redevelopment of 37th Avenue. So I would report that there aren't any additional amenities, scheduled that were part of the plan. So no bus stop benches or additional trash cans. The bus stop benches that were there previously were removed during the redevelopment of the roadway, and those were privately installed under the city's bench permit process. They're used for advertising, so that's what was removed. The company that is responsible for most of the benches in the city has not reached out for a reinstallation of any advertising benches. The other entity that gets involved, of course, with bus stops is Metro Transit, and they install benches in some locations based on ridership of the individual route, and we're unaware of plans by Metro Transit to install benches on the 37th Avenue corridor. There were questions about garbage cans around Top Value 2, the liquor store on 37th Avenue, and concerns related to, disposal of the small single-use bottles. So I have some comments from the liquor operations team and updates on, when this conversation was with the council within the last year. So by design, the liquor stores don't have recycling containers on the exterior available to the public related to the terms of the city's off-sale only and not trying to promote the consumption, certainly on-site, of those liquor items on city property. There are trash containers that are located in one place at each store, and they're at the front entrance at this time, and no plans to expand trash operations, and some additional comments on that. So one of the only other opportunities to consider would be containers that would function kind of in a drive-up way at the exit of the parking lots of the city's liquor stores. Staff have concerns about increased risk, conflict with vehicles, plowing considerations, and then also most individuals disposing of those single-use bottles on the store properties in particular are not driving, and they're not utilizing the existing trash containers. So it is a behavior issue that we've yet to fully figure out, I guess. But recently, the council did discuss the sale of those single-use bottles, and recommendations from the liquor operation team were to not discontinue the sale and rather focus on some litter prevention efforts and awareness campaigns. And to that end, one of the things recently that was completed by the city's liquor store staff during Earth Day of 2025, there was an organized cleanup effort at each store location and the surrounding areas around the stores by liquor store staff to do that cleanup effort. We are still interested in an awareness, social media campaign, and maybe a promotional program that could be launched by the city to promote recycling rather than littering. But liquor store staff don't believe that if the small format bottles were unavailable, that it would stop the program or stop the pollution necessarily. And potentially, the next size up is what is purchased and ends up being disposed of in a similar manner. So ongoing conversation. Would love to get the council input at a work session, but that's kind of a recap of where that conversation has gone in the last year or so and what's being done to address it. Also, at that meeting, there was a gentleman that stopped in anticipation of an open forum that takes place at the end of the meeting to find out that we had moved it to the beginning of the meeting. Just wanted to let the public know that myself and the mayor stayed after the meeting to talk to that gentleman and get an understanding of his concerns. A lot of it's related to some open litigation that involves that individual, so not a lot to share there, but that he was heard and does know that, of course, now that the open forum does take place at the beginning of the meeting, if he is interested in participating. Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Appreciate hearing the update. And I know that I'm a fan of Disney World, and I know that Walt Disney realized people will only walk 10 steps before they will not litter on the ground. So I think if there's a way for us to put more trash cans, maybe then people will have a moment to do that as they walk further from the door, because I think right now the trash cans are right outside the doors. But yeah, if they're kind of drinking and walking across the parking lot or something like that, usually we're finding it along the street. So I don't think they're getting washed from the building door all the way out to the street. I think they're out by the sidewalk. So something to think of is if we could put more garbage cans. And I'd be interested in also, when we first talked about that, the work session was the idea that that an advertising campaign could help with the litter. And I'd like to see what we could do for that before we decide it won't work. So I think that'd be good. But thank you for the update. I'm so glad that we can give a report back to our questions from the commission or from the community forum. All right, well, if there's nothing else to discuss today, then could I have a motion then to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Bisgins and a second by Councilmember James to adjourn the meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you and good night.